Kristin, and you're listening to 1066 The Blast. I'm here with Nick Lee of Moontooth. How are you, Nick?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So great to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I see that recently you guys have been on tour with Animals as Leaders. Talk to me a little bit about that tour.
That's actually coming up end of May. We're doing a leg of the last leg of their 10-year anniversary tour. We just did a tour with Mark Morton from Lamb of God solo project and Light the Torch. So we just came off of that one earlier this month, and then in end of May we go out with Animals.
Awesome. Now, since you released your first album in 2016, I see, like you guys just said, you were on tour with Mark Morton. You know, you've been on tour with a lot of national heavy hitters. How has that success been for you in the last couple of years? It's got to definitely be a whirlwind.
Yeah, I mean the last, like, our first big one was opening for Intronaut and Entheos. That was like our first real like national, like not DIY tour. And we've been doing DIY tours for years, just through, me booking them and networking with other bands and stuff, like trading shows. And then Intronaut was the first big one, and then we went out with For an Autopsy, we went out with Thank You Scientist, Tooth Grinder, Astronoid, so those were like the initial like kind of bigger tours. And they were all different, every day of each tour was different, but they were always great, and we got along well with all those bands. And then basically at the end of 2017, we did a headlining tour of the full U.S. We took out our friends in Husbandry, who are an awesome band from Brooklyn, New York. And pretty much all 2018, we worked on the new record. We worked on our new record, Crux. We did like a couple shows, but this band usually does at least, 100 to 200 shows a year. So to do only like a handful in a year was weird for us, but we kind of wanted to just focus on the record. And, this year, 2019, we're kind of getting back at, touring as much as possible and, on a new record.
Absolutely. So have there been any favorite bands that you've played with so far, or any favorite tours that you've done?
The Intronaut one was definitely like it was the first real big tour, and it started in California and we were in New York, so we had to route out to California, and then we did the whole tour, to New York and back to California, and then routed home to New York. So, and that was actually after already being out for a month before that. So it was almost like 3 months total of touring. So that one has a lot of memories, and that was like pretty grueling, but that one will probably always stick out as, one of the first like really memorable runs, because those guys, we looked up to them, and they were very cool to us and very, just like very accommodating, very nice to us, very real. I mean, we opened for Killswitch Engage. That was a really big one for us in New York City. Jesse Leach, their singer, had seen us at a couple bars in Brooklyn and had dug the band, so he kind of handpicked us to be on that show. We opened for the Dillinger Escape Plan before they broke up at St. Vitus, so that was like amazing. And then, obviously, Mark Morton from Lamb of God worked on a record with us. He did the pre-pro for our record. We did it at his house in Richmond. So, like, between that and going on tour with him, like, that was a huge deal, I grew up listening to that band, and they were an influence on me, as a writer and guitar player growing up. So, they just it's always great when you have those feelings of things coming full circle, when you go from being a fan to having like a normal conversation with somebody, that you looked up to. So a lot of memorable tours in the last couple of years, and really excited for Animals too. I mean, that'll easily be the biggest tour we've done as far as like the crowds every night. That's very, very exciting and intimidating, but exciting and nerve-wracking in a good way.
Right, most definitely. Now, I know you just released Crux back in March. Talk to me a little bit more about that album.
So that was the first time we had before Crux, we had an EP that we put out, and a full length called Chroma Paragon that came out in 2016. And we toured and gigged really hard on those two records, and we, along the way, made a lot of friends and connections, either with, people in other bands or industry people. And it kind of culminated in a friendship with the producer Machine, who worked on some of our favorite Lamb of God records, some of our favorite Clutch records, Every Time I Die. And we'd been hesitant to work with the producer, mainly because our drummer, Ray Marte, owns a studio here in Long Island, New York, called Westfall Recording Company. And he's always done all of our, our records, all of our recording, and that's what he does for a living. So, we were always kind of hesitant to work with anybody outside the band for that reason. And because, we're kind of, we're pretty picky about what we want in our songs, and we didn't know if it would work. But Machine, came along and dug the band. He found out about us through one of his interns at his studio, and he came out and met us, and we had been fans of his, so it kind of just made sense to work with him on the, it was like, okay, if we're going to do this and we're going to work with somebody outside the band, at least it's somebody whose work we know we already really dig and would be excited to work with him. So that was like a big deal for us, was to kind of open the doors to anybody outside the band for the first time. And then it was his idea actually to bring Mark Morton in, because he's worked on some heavy records, but it isn't really necessarily his main bag. So he wanted to bring somebody in that, obviously Mark Morton is, knows his way around riffs and, heavy, music. So, and they wanted to start working together on the production end of the spectrum. So it kind of just like all worked out. And then, we did pre-production together. So basically we worked on the songs together. We would talk about this riff and this chorus and this melody and kind of argue it out, every day for about a week. We just did that, and we all came out of it really happy with the results. We were able to kind of keep what we thought made the band special, but like maybe trim some fat here and there to just make it a more powerful record, and just to have more potential, for a bigger audience. I think that was kind of their goal, and I think it worked out. And then, at the end of the day, scheduling and money and stuff didn't work out so that Machine could mix and master the record. But so our drummer still did. But in the end of we still got their guidance and we learned a lot. So that's the biggest difference between this record and the last one is we're older. We kind of worked with producers and let them kind of educate us, and just like kind of let them give us the objective opinion. We've never had the objective opinion before. It's always just in the band hive mind, the band, the kind of like bubble where you kind of just like, you don't even really let people hear your art until it's done in your eyes, and you're very protective of it, so it's to let somebody be like, this is too long, cut this part. It's like very, difficult at first. So it was a learning experience, to say the least.
Well, the album is definitely amazing. I've definitely been digging it. Really fresh, unique sound. I think that you guys have your take on metal. Where do you think those influences come from?
If four people in the band, need to get four different answers. I think, me and the drummer have been playing together the longest. We've been playing music together since we were kids, so it's like 16 years now, and we kind of cut our teeth on the same stuff. Like, okay, Metallica, Slayer, Pantera, Sabbath, Zeppelin. Learning Hendrix covers, and then kind of like getting more into the more extreme ends of the spectrum. Going from death metal and grindcore to doom and sludge, and just kind of digging through all of the metal stuff together until, all of a sudden we don't listen to any of it anymore, and then, so Pantera was a big one for us. I mean, Mastodon was a big one. But then, our singer, until he met us, really the heaviest band he listened to was like Tool. And then he was more into like soul and R&B and like indie rock and stuff like that. And our bass player, kind of is sort of somewhere in between, where, I know he loves Between the Buried and Me, and I know he loves like System of a Down, but he'll also play what is what's that really? What's another really mellow band? I can't remember the name of them right now, but you know, who like super mellow stuff too. I bring in like some kind of country kind of Chet Atkins and finger picky stuff into the mix, you know. So we really are just like into everything. It's kind of the cop out answer, but it's kind of just like the mixing of the different influences when it comes down to putting a song together, you know, where it's like, okay, like I want it to be super heavy, but also be a great song and kind of be memorable and melodically very interesting, but also melodically, you know, accessible. So it's not like, you know, I think the big difference between the new record is, you know, you can sing along to it, you know, and the old one would be very difficult. You'd have to kind of study the material to sing along to a lot of it. Um, so, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, we're all influenced by a little bit of everything. And I think that comes through in the music.
And what do you think is your favorite song off of the recent album that you released, if you had to choose one?
That's a tough. It's like picking one of your what's your favorite child, you know. But I think that I really love the title track, Crux. I think that it kind of particularly because it was like a totally different song before we went into the studio. It was like this kind of um you know, epic 9 minute long like prog metal song, and from working with Mark and being kind of open to suggestion, we turned it into this sort of like the closest thing we've ever had to a ballad, but it also has the most heavy, brutal section of anything on the album. And so I think that kind of juxtaposition, you know, is kind of like representative of what Moonties does. We're kind of definitely not in a box, and you can have this almost like soulful R&B ballad that comes into this almost Meshuggah influenced, you know, brutal, heavy thing, you know, and it can be in the same song, and it's okay. It doesn't feel weird, you know. So I'd say that one's probably uh one of the most. And then there's this probably as a guitar player, the song Motionless in Sky is my favorite because it took the most work. So it, you know, it was the most rewarding to have it actually be done and be able to play it from front to back with the band. And that was like a long time in the works. Like it took a really long time to get that together musically. So yeah, between those two songs, it's hard to choose.
And so was it just like the intricateness of the guitar writing of the song, or what was it that was very difficult on that track?
For that one specifically, it was yeah, like I just I had the main riff that it opens the song was kind of came to me, and just a, you know, kind of light bulb kind of moment, you know, like, or just hits you and like it kind of follow this path, and it, you know, you just all of a sudden you have this crazy riff, and it happened very naturally. But then honestly, a lot of times what happens with songs like that is that the rest of it is very hard to put together around it because one thing came really quickly, so everything else, if it starts to feel forced, it doesn't feel right for the song. And then what added to that was I wanted the solo to be, um, you know, beyond anything I'd done before, but more so in the vein of being tasteful and like memorable more than being flashy. You know, more like David Gilmour than Steve Vai. You know, if that makes sense.
Right.
And then what happened in the studio is, you know, Machine was kind of like, you know, we were like, look, this is just like our prog song. Like, let it be the prog song. Let's not try to like nip tuck it to make it a radio song. It is just like, you know, it is what it is. We want it to kind of stay. And he was like, all right, well, it's not prog enough then. You have to change this. You should do more with this part. And it had already been really complicated. So then I went out of my way to make, you know, the next movement to be even crazier. So like, it was one thing to do in the studio, but like we just played the album full live, and it took like a lot of tears and frustration to be able to play the whole thing, you know, front to back without, you know, falling apart. But I like, you know, I like things like that. I like to always put things on the record that I know I'm going to have to really work my ass off to pull off live, if you know, if that makes sense.
Most definitely, and then you know you have that ability to kind of go back and say, hey, you know, I did that, you know, when you put that much more work into it, and it shows, you
Yeah,
know, in the album.
part of what we do is definitely trying to push ourselves as players, but also as writers. I'd like to. We're not about being the most progressive band or the best guitar players or drummers or anything. We want to be a good rock band at the end of the day, like something that anybody could get down with. You don't have to have a music degree to enjoy the album, like you could just put it on and really study it, or you could put it on and just enjoy it, party to it or whatever. But I definitely like to try to be like, every time I sit down to write a solo or a new song, I like to try to, I really want to do something I haven't done before. And I think that's, if there's anything that's like progressive about the band, it really is more that philosophy, that it's like it needs to evolve as it goes, Doesn't mean it has to have a billion notes in it or have different time signatures. It just comes down to like, I need to feel like there is an evolution here. Otherwise, what are we doing? It's just, I don't want to do the songs by numbers thing. Just kind of keep pushing, creativity.
Most definitely. Now, you talk about evolution. Tell me how it all began. How did Moontooth come together?
So I mentioned that me and the drummer, we met in middle school, in 7th grade. He was the first other person I had seen with a Metallica t-shirt on that was my age at that point in my life. So we immediately became friends, and he played drums and I played guitar already. So, that started kind of the cycle of starting bands and writing songs, like pretty much as early as 13. And then we were in a band for a long time that started in high school that, kind of broke up when we were around, I think we were like 21, 22. And then once that broke up, we pretty much immediately, we were a 3-piece when our singer bass player decided, told us that he didn't want to do it anymore. We pretty much, at that band practice started writing songs for Moontooth. We didn't know what it was going to be called at the time, but that was, we just are kind of, compelled to create together. We have kind of a chemistry that's been built over so many years that it wouldn't make sense to do anything else really with our lives. And it's stayed that way somehow miraculously all this time. And I had known our singer, John. We played in another band that he played drums actually, which was more just like experimental kind of indie rock stuff, like more, I don't even know how to describe it really, but very, very bizarre kind of intricate indie rock stuff. And then I knew he could sing, and as soon as, he was a fan of our old band, so as soon as we kind of announced that it was over, I had a message in my inbox like, look, I know you guys are going to need some time or whatever, but I know I should be the singer of your new band. So, and I knew he could sing, and I knew he wasn't a metal singer, and that was honestly the attraction beyond his voice. It was just that we wanted to do something that wasn't going to be, just fit right into a genre, And then our friend Vin had just been our friend for a long time, coming to our shows, knowing of his shows, and I just knew he was just a reliable, good dude, and he could play bass and was very passionate about it. And actually, our singer and bass player met at their first rehearsal together. They didn't even know each other, and now it's been 6 years and change since then. So it's, it felt, and then we just our first year, I just insisted that we just play shows. Don't worry too much about, recording right away or social media right away. We were doing all those things, but I was insistent that we played shows, and we played about 100 shows in our first year, just all types of horrible shows in anywhere you could imagine, just to get the experience, because I knew that,
Right.
Even if we're all good separately, we're only going to be a good band by playing live and by kind of being up there and learning the hard way, okay, I don't know that part as well as I thought I did, and I don't sing as in key as I thought I was singing, and kind of just before we were to be put on some big stage somewhere, I wanted to get all of that stuff out of the way. So yeah, we kind of just, nose to the grindstone, immediately, just really kind of relentless with playing shows and little DIY tours, little weekend things, and just let it grow from there.
So how did it all start for you? How did you figure out that you wanted to be a guitar player?
I started young. I mean, my immediate family didn't play music, but they always had music playing in the house. And then their friends, their closest friends, some of them played in bands like bar bands, cover bands. So I grew up going to their shows, so it was always kind of like a part of the makeup of my life. Was it was always like a big, it was already like an important thing in my family. And then so like I was already intrigued by it, and then I heard, I think it was Metallica, like Enter Sandman or something. And then like once I heard that, and I kind of got the the bite, from of like metal, like infected by like what that did to me. And then I became kind of obsessed with particularly Metallica, and then like learning all of their songs, and then kind of they're, like so many other people, like they were the doorway to everything else, every other thrash metal band, and then beyond that.
And now, what advice would you give to young guitar players that are just starting off from your own personal experiences?
I mean, obviously the obvious one is practice. I mean, I give guitar lessons. That's there's no way around that. I heard Steve Vai say it in an interview. He called it like the rule of 1,000 hours or something like that, or 10,000 hours. Like, there's no getting around that. You have those savant people or freak people that can pick it up and just get it. But 99 out of 100 people are not like that, and there's no way around it. But I would also say, like, do it because you enjoy it, and like find what makes you happy doing it. I mean, what makes me happy is not going to be what makes the next person happy. You might really love studying theory and learning how to read music, or you might really love just learning songs, or you might really love like writing your own songs. But I try to explain this to my students all the time. Like, you should be enjoying the work. Like, even if it sucks to sit on the metronome for an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, really just drilling your scales and all your stuff, like, you should be enjoying it to a certain extent. Like, it shouldn't really be, and if you're not, then find some other way to express yourself with the instrument. Because, I wouldn't tell them like, you should really get into this because, you're going to make a lot of money, obviously. So, especially if like playing the music that we play, so it's find what speaks to you with the instrument, and just follow that path, because that'll be more rewarding than getting through 8 Mel Bay books and getting through college with your performance degree and stuff. I mean, maybe that'll be what it is for you, but it wasn't for me. For me, I took it as far as I wanted to with theory and learning music, which was substantial. But at a certain point, I was like, I don't need this anymore. I want to just write music. I want to create music with my friends. I want to be on stage. So that's where it took me, and the metronome, playing the metronome.
Right, you always got to do that. You always got to do your due diligence or whatever there, and practice.
Yeah, those fundamentals, they're there for a reason. But like for me, it was like I was doing a lot of that stuff, but as a kid, I was just like, I was learning every song on Master of Puppets. Like, I think I learned just as much of how to handle a guitar and play from doing that I did from studying scales and learning how to read out of a book. I mean, that stuff helped. It all is, working towards the same goal, which is to make you a better, more well-rounded musician. But at the end of the day, like, just time on the instrument is what's going to make the difference. A lot of students I have they're kind of looking for that shortcut,
Right.
and there's really no way around the time, and a lot of my older students get bummed out. They feel like, I should have started younger. And it's like, yeah, of course it's easier. You don't have as many responsibilities, but at the end of the day, it's like, I'm sure you could cut out a half an hour a day to sit on this thing, and that's really what it takes, is just the time.
Most definitely. Now, where do you find that your inspiration for songwriting comes from?
When I was starting out, I could probably relate every old song to a particular song or riff or album that I was into at the time. Now I feel like it just comes more from just like life experience and the good and bad of every day. I mean, some of my favorite things I've come up with on the new record, which came from really horrible things I was going through personally, where I was kind of just working them out, by just sitting with the guitar for a really long time. And a lot of the times, like, certain songs in the record will make me think of certain issues I was having or bad days I was having, because that, you pick up the guitar and this thing kind of comes out of you. That's kind of more what happens now, because I've been doing it for most of my life. I also play in a power metal band that tours a lot called Riot, and so I mean, between Moontooth and Riot, I've very much always playing guitar, and usually I have something I got to work on or finish writing or get ready for a tour or something, but I've come to the point where I can sort of speak through it and channel things through it, so I think more so in this point in my life, I'm influenced by what I'm experiencing every day, what's going on in my life.
Most definitely, I could feel a great depth of emotion in the guitar playing and also in the vocals in many of the songs on the album. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, Don, our singer, he definitely dug really deep with this one too. I mean, he was going through tough, time personally, and all of us were kind of facing this crossroads of, okay, like, we're not getting any younger and we still want to do this thing with our lives, but everything in society kind of tells you to not. This is foolish. This is not like a viable way to live your life. And you shouldn't be sleeping on people's dirty floors when you're 30. But so that's kind of where the title comes from in general. Is crux is like being at this particular point of difficulty and kind of looking down the two paths of like, okay, do I want a normal life, or do I want the life I've always dreamed of, and more so than anything, just being able to be myself and pursue art. And a lot of the themes lyrically on the album deal with that. And it's a heavy thing to deal with. And I think everybody, whether you play music or you paint or you write or whatever it is, whatever like your thing is, even if you're really into whatever, you're really into being an accountant or you're really being into whatever it is, like, if you for some reason can't do the thing that you feel like you were put on the planet to do, and you have to kind of like accept something different just for the convenience of money or living situation, it's a hard thing to accept. And sometimes people accept it and then they fail anyway, so it's a tough, I think that's, anybody can relate to that. Basically, it's what I'm getting at, is that feeling of, trying to make that choice in life.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely can. Like I was reading about the description of the album and essentially you guys talked about where it's, finding the end of one particular life and beginning on another and then kind of also that call to like if you're a fighter, like getting back into the fight, like never giving up.
Yeah, exactly. Like those are John's words, and that kind of puts it all nicely in a few sentences. It's kind of just like, exactly like, do you, this, if you're pursuing what you really want, it's probably gonna knock you down, and you're gonna feel like a failure. And the important thing is to just keep getting back up. And there's a couple like references to like Muhammad Ali in the album and stuff. It's like it kind of, you have to be a fighter, and you have to be tough, and you have to be willing to upset people around you and yourself sometimes, and it is what it is. I mean, if we wanted to quit and just do it on a weekend every once in a while, like that option's always there. Like there's no reason why we can't do that. But it's, none of us want that. So it's kind of like, just keep, all right, this is a huge disappointment or letdown, and then here's another one, and then here's another one. But then all of a sudden you'll get like Animals Leaders Tour. Okay, cool, like got something real, and then just kind of following that, that the ups and downs, the ebb and flow of how this shit goes, and just being kind of like embracing it instead of being afraid of it. I think that's a big part of the message of the album too.
Absolutely. And what a powerful message it is. Tell me now, what else is going on for Moontooth the rest of the summer, or what else are you guys working on that we should know about?
I'm lining up some headlining shows for the summer right now, and we got some other plans for videos and some other cool content stuff. We have a bunch of cool merch stuff coming out soon. But essentially, I'm just trying to keep us on the road. So I mean, the summer will probably be mostly headlining stuff. And then, we're just looking out for tours for the fall right now. Life is simple now. We have a new record. We just want to get out and play it. But we also have a batch of new songs, and we kind of want to not. It took 3 years between both records, and we were very much not into doing that again. So I think it'll be a lot less time until you hear new music this time around too. So just trying to stay busy and just take every opportunity that comes our way. But in the immediate future, just some headlining shows. We're probably going to be playing the full record over the summer, and excited for that.
Awesome, most definitely. Now, do we have an idea of when you're going to get back in the studio for the new tracks that you're developing?
Not exactly, but we kind of want to start, start sooner than later, rather than kind of wait till this album cycle starts to wind down. We kind of want to start in the next couple months, at least, just outlining the next release. And we've talked about, maybe it'll be an album, but we might kind of start doing some smaller releases too, because we have so much material, and it's a bummer when it takes like just 2-3 years for people to hear it. By the time people hear it, you've already kind of over it, and that's just not the way the industry even works anymore. People just want that next thing, that new thing, like, before they've even finished listening to the last thing you put out. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to say, because it's, we make plans and then things happen and plans change, but definitely sooner than later, next couple months.
Awesome. We'll definitely have to look forward to that, and also for you guys for tour dates in our area. Is there anything else that you want to share with me or our listeners today?
Not specifically, but I mean, just try to catch us on the Animals as Leaders run. It's the last 10 or so shows of that tour. It's like May 18th to the 26th. We're mostly East Coast stuff, but we'll be in Toronto, we'll be in Atlanta, New York, Philly, Columbus. So I mean, if we're coming near you, come say hi. We'll be at the merch table every day, and we're excited to meet all the new people on that run. So definitely try to catch us on Animals, or over the summer, come say hi.
Absolutely. I'll definitely have to make it a point to do that. I thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, and I look forward to hopefully catching you guys at a show and to the new music that you're going to release.
Right on. Thanks for having me. This was fun. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day.
Bye, Kristin. You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.